Rehabilitation
Let's
here.
get this show on the road here. Right on the top.
If nothing, we're prompt, right?
That's right.
Yeah, sure is.
Gotta start
Hey.
somewhere. Okay, we're live.
Perfect. Well, I would like to call this meeting of the Cincinnati Board of Park Commissioners. Today is November 18th, 2021. And for the record, we have all of our commissioners present, which means we'll take votes today by voice call, but we will do roll call if requested by any commissioner or by the director. Director Kish is joining us today. Good morning, Kara, via Zoom call. And
Morning, everyone.
good morning. And I'd like to welcome our visitors today here in the building and also those on Zoom. And before we start today, it's a little dreary outside today, but we've had some glorious days. And I would just encourage all of you to get out, even though it's a little late this year, the fall colors are spectacular. So I would encourage anybody that's listening to the next time the sun peeks out, to get out to one of your Cincinnati parks because the colors are beautiful. I might even suggest after your Thanksgiving dinner next week, take everybody out and do a walk on one of our trails before you take your nap afterwards. But just encourage you to take advantage and enjoy the beautiful colors in our parks. With that, we'll start. We have some public speakers and we have a full agenda and we allow 2 minutes to anybody that would like to speak. And we have today, first of all, Rachel, or is it Raquel Wells? Rachel, please come on up and welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to read to keep it brief.
That's great.
Yeah, my name is Rachel Wells, and I have lived for 7 years in the park side. It's a historic multifamily home in Clifton. I'm an immediate neighbor of the proposed dog site in the northeast corner of Burnett Woods. I'm here to express my opposition to that as a site and to also request more thorough public engagement with the neighbors. I'd like to see Cincinnati parks conduct comparable or better outreach than was afforded to my neighbors near Dunner Park. As I'm sure you recall, the Clifton Dog Park Analysis Memo in your July meeting minutes notes ideal attributes for a dog park. These include distance from home, alignment with the character of the site, and adequate parking. As the report then states, the site in Burnett Woods is problematic in each of those areas. I can confirm this as a neighbor. We are adjacent, that site is adjacent to many homes that have little to no access to private green space. As an established peaceful and natural character that is in stark contrast to the fake turk and frenetic activity of a dog park, and it suffers from limited parking. Naturally, I was surprised to learn that Burnett Woods was presented at your August meeting as the preferred site. I was also surprised that staff was commended for engagement efforts and that commissioners are already speaking about potential future expansion. The last I had heard of the Clifton Dog Park was when Dunner Park was dismissed as the preferred site due to residential impact and neighbors' opposition. If Dunner Park is not a fit, then certainly this new site is inappropriate as well. With several adjacent multifamily buildings, the lawn at Burnett Woods North entrance is an anchor for neighbors in this area of high population density. My home, the park side, is a nearly 125-year-old building on the National Register of Historic Places. As a long-term resident of the park side, I received no direct outreach. I have seen no signs in the park alerting residents and visitors of the proposed plan. The site selection process has been swift, and we were not afforded the same courtesy of a community survey. This lack of engagement and consideration for the immediate neighbors devalues our input and community commitment as residents in multifamily housing. I oppose construction, but more importantly, I'm asking that Cincinnati parks conduct more thorough public engagement, including direct outreach to the immediate neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. And obviously you've heard about the dog park, so you're aware of it. And I'll just also note that you're not the first person from your building that has participated with us as part of the total outreach that we've conducted throughout the neighborhood. So thank you. Thank you for your comments. We have Alan Bernstein with us here today as well. Mr. Bernstein's no stranger to anybody in Cincinnati, and welcome, and we'll afford you the 2 minutes as well.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good
I'm
morning.
here to talk about the marina project. I'm not here to talk for or against, but I want the park board to know that I've been involved with the Cincinnati Marina for probably 30 plus years. We've studied many different concepts, many different things. I was a part of Recreation's Waterfront Advisory. At the end, the Recreation used to be in charge of the park, and now the park board. When we stopped the Recreation, I was the chairman of the committee. My comments are simply this. There is a very nice piece of property that is afforded us by Mother Nature to have the marina. The marina should be used by the pleasure boaters of our area and people coming through the area from out of town. And we can get it to a very simple thing. It should be a headboat and a marina. The marina can be used for sporting events, all the major festivals and events that are held down there. If the headboat serves as a platform to secure the docks and allow people to come in and out daily. Some may spend a day or two if you're coming through the city to enjoy our city. So I encourage the board to put forward or take proposals from the people who are interested in doing a marina, and just make it simple. A headboat and the docks, and it doesn't have to be anything more than that. Our citizens who have boats and like to do that, it's a great platform to bring people downtown and you want people to enjoy the parks. I'm a riverman, I've been on the river since 1970. That seems like yesterday, but I know it's a long time. And I encourage you, instead of having all these different proposals that go in and out, and I've been trying to keep track of all of them, but I don't know if I'm aware of all of them. But I encourage you as a board to go back to the basic concept of what it is or what it was, and just stop all the different proposals that are coming in and out, and make it a marina for our pleasure boaters locally and for out-of-towners to come and enjoy our city.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very, and thank you for your help along the way over the years with for CRC and now joining in our discussion. As you're aware, as it relates to boat dock is not on our agenda today.
I know it is not.
For the first time, we were given the information a week ago, and we will take that issue up, and we appreciate your input on that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And our final speaker is Victoria Hvac. Thank you for being here. And again, we'd like to have 2 minutes if you would.
I wrote it down, so I'm going to try to stay right on point. I followed the Cincinnati dock proposals from 2016. Initially, you had a KCF proposal by the architectural firm, and that was scrapped. Then in 2020, Queen City Riverboats came in with a no-bid proposal, and that was scrapped because of how it came in. In 2021, there was an open bid proposal in June of 2021. And I'll quote, "The two chosen reviewed and scored proposals most recently," that was September 15th, 2021. "While the other respondent also offered good overall proposals, H. Hafner and Sons, Inc. can provide the service with equal expertise with a higher financial benefit and meeting the established inclusion goals." And I'm going to give you a copy of this so you can have it. I would like to know how Queen City Riverboats was able to offer a second proposal with substantial changes past the submission deadlines. Out of curiosity, I Googled the Catfish Bend, a former casino boat that was submitted in option 2. I emailed the information to Mary. It includes a video, certificate of inspection history, and the current listing at Pinnacle Marine for the boat. I don't know if the city has changed the rules on the proposal process. I'm unable to see anywhere that the request and bid for the hotel event venue or multi-purpose complex was ever asked for. So wouldn't it be in all of our interests, taxpayers, city, government, etc., to vet all of this information? And also, the last meeting was the most confusing and unorthodox meeting I've ever viewed, and I followed it from the inception. I've watched every one of your meetings, and I happen to be retired, but I have a 40-year career as the highest paid dishwasher on the Ohio River. I actually started the Satisfaction Yacht Charters with my business partner 40 years ago.
Perfect.
And I also run a marina. So women do get involved in this.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your comments. And for clarity, for all those, we continue to work with both the procurement department as well as the legal department. There has been no discussion or deliberation among the commissioners here about the status of those proposals that we saw last week. We are still working to make sure that we are following the procurement rules as established by the city of Cincinnati. So no decision has been made. We are not moving forward at this point in time, taking any action on anything that's been presented to us yet. And we will be taking this up at a future meeting. We did receive this week the original proposals that were part of the RFP process. So these commissioners now have that. And so we will be putting this on an agenda, hopefully in December, but we haven't established that yet. But we will be working under the guidance of both procurement and law to make sure that we follow the city's procurement process to the T on this one. So thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
I do want to mention that we did have, and also wanted to let you know that your submission to the park board was received, and all the commissioners individually have received both your letter and the documents that you had attached, including the video, was distributed to all the commissioners. So thank you. I do want to mention we also received input and comments for this meeting regarding public comments. They were related to the Westwood Dora proposal that we will be hearing today. We did receive additional input, comments on the riverfront boat dock. We received comments regarding the Burnett Woods Dog Park. And then we also, I want to take a moment, we received a request from the Cuff Neighborhood Association concerning the potential renaming of one of our parks for a citizen in Cincinnati that has been involved not only with Cuff, but with the park board, and for a long time, many years, has been a volunteer with the park board. I just wanted, since we just got this yesterday, we are going to turn that over to the park staff and ask staff to come back to us in December with a recommendation and input on the process and the concept of renaming one of our Cincinnati parks in honor of this volunteer.
Mr. President.
Yes, ma'am.
Just wanted to be clear on the request to staff. Is it a recommendation on the process or a recommendation on the naming?
I would ask for both. I'm not sure what our established process is on renaming a park facility. I know there is regulations regarding any naming of items, including roadways within the parks and facilities that might have a name.
Okay.
But I would also like them to give us their thoughts on this particular request as well. And we should have that in our packet, if not before the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions before? Thank you. Then we're going to move into our business meeting. The first item is approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes from our October 7 and our October 12 special meetings. We will be taking up the minutes for October 21 at our December meeting. But if commissioners have had an opportunity to review October 7 and October 12, do we have any comments, corrections, additions? If none, I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve October 7 and October 12 special meeting minutes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, our minutes are approved. Our first action item regards the Westwood Dora proposal. And Director Kish, how would you like to tee this up for us?
I think Jenny will get us started on this agenda item.
Thank you. Good morning, Jenny.
Good morning. Today we have Gio Rocco and Larry Eisler. They're representing the Westwood Dora. They're proposing to bring a Dora district, which is a dedicated outdoor refreshment area, to the Westwood community. And part of that Dora district, we would like to include Westwood Town Hall, which you guys are aware that the grounds are managed by the park board and the building is managed by the Recreation Commission. So I have Gio Rocco that's going to do a very short presentation for you. And then I'm here to answer any questions as well.
You might move back just a little bit closer. Kara, are you able to hear speakers on Zoom?
Very clearly, thank you.
Thank you. Gio, welcome.
How's it going? I'm Gio Rocco. I'm with the Department of Community and Economic Development. So let's see.
You're going to point to Mary.
I will point to Mary.
Yes.
Cool. So you all, I'm sure familiar with Doras. I don't have to go through all this, but legislation passed by the state allows for people to walk out of certain establishments that have liquor permits with an alcoholic beverage in a certain designated cup and walk within this designated area. It's regulated by Ohio Revised Code, Cincinnati Municipal Code. If you have 320 acres, and as of this past year, the city can have 4 Doras. We obviously have the one at the banks, which you all have voted on before. These Doras must be renewed every 5 years by city council and presumably any other approving body. So we would like to do one in Westwood. I think this has been a little unique compared to, let's say, the bank story and probably Dora's in other parts of the state. This has been a complete community-driven initiative for sure. So I think it's going to serve as a model for maybe other cities, but definitely other neighborhoods. So Larry Eisler has been great here. We've been working with all the community groups, community council, community development corporation, whoever it may be, the churches, the Westwood Town Hall, any group that you could think of. This is the proposed boundary. It's along Harrison Avenue, the business district. We were careful to cut out certain sidewalks that we thought were on more residential streets. So some key facts about the Westwood Dora is that it'll be 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And of course, the city manager has discretion to temporarily suspend the Dora for any reason. The hours are going to be Monday to Friday, 5 p.m. to 11 p.m., Saturday and Sunday, 12 p.m. to 11 p.m. It's going to be, like I said, it's a community-driven initiative. So the management of this Dora, to make sure it's going smoothly, is going to be really driven by the Westwood Civic Association, which is the community council in partnership with the participating businesses. So it's really a grassroots thing. That's, and I think that's really cool. So, like I said, we think it's going to be different than the Dora that's at the banks, and one, we say that because this is probably more similar to what other Doras are in these smaller suburbs surrounding cities, they're kind of just more casual. You get a drink, maybe walk around a little bit. It's not like Party City or anything like that. And we try to make the hours, for example, reflect that. So 5 p.m. To 11 p.m. during the week, and then 12 to 11 on the weekends. People are going to go home. Westwood inherently isn't the place that you're going 1 a.m. on a Friday night or anything like that. So we've also been working with the police department to make sure that they felt that there was adequate police visibility to make sure that things don't get too rowdy or anything like that, and they feel confident that things will go smoothly. Let's see, if there's something else. So, and then I think it might be cut off, or I don't know, maybe I cut it off. We worked with Department of Public Services. We worked to see if there's enough trash cans for the area, and we were able to move stuff around, and there's going to be a can at all appropriate locations to make sure that there's not cups everywhere. So here's the map again. Curious, the focal point really is the park with Muse Cafe, Ivory House, and the brewery kind of being right there in the center. This is the process. I have this a little out of order because I thought the CRC board was next week, which was on Tuesday, but we did some initial public notice a couple of weeks ago. We went to CRC board on Tuesday, park board today. It will eventually go to Economic Growth and Zoning Committee, City Council, and then hopefully for full council approval. So I don't know if you all have any questions, but that's all I have for you all.
Thank you, Gio.
Yeah.
Questions,
Couple
comments?
questions.
Yep.
So you say the city has 4 opportunity for 4 Doras.
Yes.
I appreciate the grassroots nature of it, but does the city have a plan for how it's going to use these 4 Doras? I presume that the parks will be approached because the park would always be presumably part of Dora.
Sure, if there's a park in a neighborhood that wants it, totally. Yeah, we've had that conversation. We have 4, how do we do it? Do we have a vetting process? You know, not every neighborhood wants one. And we've been approached by actually exactly 4 neighborhoods, and some neighborhoods that we might think are a good fit for like a Dora. So maybe someone might think Over the Rhine, an entertainment neighborhood. They don't want one as a neighborhood, or North Side, where there's also plenty of bars and restaurants. They don't want one either. So the way we've approached it, and I think we probably will approach it, is if you want one, approach us and we will process them appropriately. First come, first serve on a one-off basis. And if we do reach that 4 point, I think it's going to be on the city to maybe lobby the state to change that law, because it was originally 2, only 2 doors allowed. So that changed during COVID to 4. And I think we probably would have to consider that, or come up with some ways to like gerrymander districts in some way, like there's 320 acres, it's pretty big.
And Gio, this started when? Because we did the Banks Dora 2 years ago.
Yeah, so the banks, we started the Banks Dora process in 2019. I think it was approved almost exactly a year ago, maybe
Okay.
even that this.
So this has been around, so neighborhoods should know of this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's my other question. We brought this up when Assistant City Manager Billy Weber brought the Banks Dora. What's going to happen with all these plastic cups? Obviously, we're stewards of the environment.
Yeah.
We're disinterested in creating plastic waste. So
For
you're
sure.
going to have cans.
So I think at that meeting a year ago, you all had brought up maybe using compostable cups. That's something that we incorporated at the Banks Dora and are incorporating. in
Are you
this Dora.
composting them?
That's a good question. I don't know if there will be, specific composting bins there, but they are compostable. And the idea is that the community will make sure that this is being taken care of appropriately. Make sure there's not trash everywhere. But yeah, that is a good question.
As a developing leader in the city, I want you to take this very seriously, because this is a good opportunity. It's a broader statement for the city of Cincinnati. We have an opportunity to really get on the map about being a leader in sustainability, and the ways that we do it are these little things about how we treat plastics and how they impact our environment. So it's wonderful that they're compostable, but if they still end up in the landfill, we've only gotten halfway there.
Yeah, totally. Completely understand. Would your preference be reusable cups? I'm not saying.
I would like them not to be produced at all. For the record, I'd like everyone to bring their own cup. So I understand that may not be feasible, but.
I will tell you the ones we're looking at, and maybe the same as the banks is using, is plant-based. So supposedly they're biodegradable. They're not something at a certain lifetime, even if they wind up in. And I'm not an expert on it. So if it would be better processed to create some kind of recycling bins, even though they're biodegradable, then we can pursue that for sure.
I mean, I'm on this park board because I love trees. Okay, so let's be clear.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. It's exciting.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes. just have a question about this particular one, Fedora, and whether or not we are setting a precedent by having it include a playground.
So I think that's a really great question. The plan is to sign that playground particularly to say no door cups allowed or anything like that. So for example, the town hall building will also have a sign that says no door cups allowed. And the idea is that the playground will have signs that say no cups within this playground.
Oh,
Yeah, we've worked with Rocky, he's kind of Rocky Merce, and he okayed kind of the design and the size and what material he would like that sign to be on the gate to the playground. So we're probably gonna use a similar design. We're working with CRC right now to see if we can do something similar, if they want to size it down or whatever for the doorway. But definitely that was part of it. And
so while it's geographically a part of the DORA, that particular area will not be included.
So yeah, so that's right. And I think that's a really great point, just to talk about the function, how these things function in general. So a business, for example, could say, no, we don't want to participate, we don't want you. So even though there might be a hat shop within the boundary, the hat shop could say, we don't want any cups in here. You don't have like a right to walk into any property, on any parcel with the door just because it's there.
And
this would be
that's
that.
signage driven, isn't it?
It's signage driven and enforced by, like in the business instance, the business owner, but in this instance, it'll be more like any enforcement that's going on, be it a park employee or anything like that.
the other interesting thing, if you're on the signage that occurs, the signage for the boundaries, the signage in the windows of the businesses, we have a QR code where if you scan that, you can see what the map is and the map and what the rules are. And it brings up basically a page, a door page of the West Pacific Association website. And right there in the map, it says these two areas are not included as part of the door of the playground. So it's kind of.
If I may, I just want to make sure you understand that it is the property of the Westwood Town Hall Park, but the playground itself would not be. Okay, when you said the area, I wasn't sure if you were referring to the entire space.
No, I understand.
Plaza would be allowed.
Yes, I understand that, but I'm specifically concerned about. the
Yes,
playground.
no, I understand. We were too. So I just wanted to make sure.
Okay, signs are great. But who's gonna police it? Who's gonna see that this is enforced?
For that particular.
For the playground, for instance.
Yeah.
Where they're not allowed, who's gonna police it? Are you gonna have volunteers that are walking around and saying, no, you can't come in here?
So I think a piece of it is going to be the signage, of course. I think that's huge. When we spoke with other cities, that they said, there's actually not much enforcement that comes besides education and signage, but I think that's a totally fair question. I think, with working with CPT, they believe that things can be enforced appropriately given the level of officers they do have in the area. It's possible that there are some instances where people are violating that rule. There's not going to be someone, I don't think the plan is to have someone there 24/7 to make sure it doesn't happen, but I think you're right, it is possible.
We are going to have a door management committee that reports under the West Pacific Association. Part of that is to manage and monitor for litter issues or any of those kind of issues and take any kind of concerns from the public and address them. So hopefully, if someone's not there to monitor it, if there's an issue, it'll be raised and then we can take appropriate action. But the first thing I'd say, the one thing I'd say is, first it's the banks that we have the ability to have a designated area within the park for Music Cafe and West Side Brew due to COVID up until a certain point a few months ago that ended. But the no issues from a District 3 perspective, no issues from Shinse's perspective at CRC. And the playground was there. We had the designated area. We didn't have any issues with people taking plastic cups into the playground.
Great. And from a broader sense, I think I had somewhat the same question as far as enforceability. I know District 3 is here. I'd like to hear, Jake, your thoughts on the banks is one thing where you've got physical boundaries and you can enforce a little bit easier than what we're looking at here as a neighborhood. How do you see this being patrolled differently, or what gives you comfort that it can be somewhat patrolled?
The good news is we met with the state of Ohio Department of Investigation to actually does the type of door investigation and enforcement with the city of Cincinnati. We also visited Middletown, Loveland, Lima, Hamilton, and talked to their police departments about enforcement issues that they've had. And we do believe the banks actually takes a lot more resources than we believe this is going to take. For like people, technically drinking in the marked space is illegal. It's a violation of Ohio Revised Code. It is enforceable by citation or arrest. So it could be enforced by the police department. We don't foresee that. We really don't. Right now, that space, the park board property, is used very commonly for what's called an F2. They get permits for festivals and much more in the past couple of years since the revitalization of that space. And we've never had any issues with that. Never.
Okay.
Nice to hear.
So I know that the police won't endorse this, but you have no,
We have no objections.
Objections.
We do support the efforts of the community group. Yeah, we cannot endorse it.
thank you.
Also with that, we're looking at some of, the data that we've had there. We think this one's probably going to be much easier to manage from a police enforcement standpoint. We have training modules. All of our officers are already been trained on the citations they can cite and hours and signage. So we've given them copies of the signage, thinking that this may happen in the next few months. So we are prepared.
Perfect. Thank you.
I have one other question.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand it from the map that you gave. And the comments, of course, were all positive that we've received. But residents, you do mention them, but you don't spell out where they are and who they are. And are these apartment buildings that are incorporated into this? Are they, I don't understand that.
I don't know if I fully understand. Are you asking?
You talk about there being residents, people that live in this area, as well as people that just work in this area and have businesses.
You are going to address it if you want. There are no residents.
There are
in
none.
the door area. In fact, we left out any sidewalk that bordered on a school, a church, or a residential home. And we aren't going down any residential streets even partially. And we met with the principal of the school, Westwood School. We met with there's one church, Westwood United Methodist Church, met with the pastor there. They were all good with what we were talking about. And I think that they didn't even ask for us to not include the sidewalk around the place. We just felt like it was the right thing to do. Had no objections.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions, comments?
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Well presented. Are there, so we have in front of us, what is it, Jenny?
Yes, so the staff respectfully requests the approval of including the Westwood Town Hall in the door district of Westwood.
And as she says, Westwood Town Hall, what we're incorporating that as the entire park area. And as mentioned earlier, the building itself, the town center, is not going to be included. CRC board did look at this 2 days ago and are supportive, but it's not our call, but that's there. So you're asking for a motion of approval. Is there a motion or other questions?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion and second to approve this. Are there any other discussions on the motion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate the work of Westwood Town, the Westwood community, as well as Gio and your department. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Look forward to coming and having a beer.
Absolutely.
And she's going to bring her own glass for that.
Yeah, you're not allowed.
Oh, you're not even allowed to.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's got to be there.
I mean, I'm raising a question about this for a real reason, Jim.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Okay, next we'll move on to Ezra Charles Plaza. And Kara, I see Cindy's face on our screen.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to allow Cindy to walk you through this project. So happy that this is on our agenda today. So Cindy will take you through the agenda item.
Good morning.
Good morning.
At its November 2017 meeting, the board approved conceptual design plans for the Ezra Charles statue and plaza at Laurel Park. Park staff has worked congruently with the Parks Foundation to further develop the project design. We have discussed maintenance and have a plan in place to address it. The construction of the plaza and statue foundation have been publicly bid. The board is now being asked to approve the award, the final design, and maintenance plan for the project. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Cindy. Any questions regarding this presentation? I appreciate your looking at the maintenance, and I appreciate the foundation's work and raising money and establishing an endowment, so to speak, for this, and we'll be providing funding for maintenance on an annual basis. Thank you to the foundation. If there's no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I have a comment.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you. This project has been very exciting for me from the very beginning when I heard about it. I think it's going to be a tremendous asset and addition to this park. And the upgrade that goes with it to this park is going to be great for the neighborhood, great for the city. Commissioner North and I had the opportunity to be there for the ribbon cutting, and there is incredible excitement in the community about this project. There is also at least one person who has come forward with concerns about it, questions about the location of it. And I know that those comments are ruminating out there in the community. And I just wanted to make sure everybody's aware of it, that we're aware of it, and that there is a plan in place to address those comments. And the main thing, there were two concerns, as I understand it. One is the location of the statue, because there were concerns about it not being on the street. And the second one was concerns about the inclusion of comments, or the diversity of comments that were included during the process of this project. I believe that the foundation has done an outstanding job of addressing those concerns and delineating the process that was undertaken to get us to this point, and to demonstrate the broad inclusion that was happening as this project was moving forward. So I think at this point, it's just a matter of engaging with anyone who has opposition to it, to have them understand that those things have been addressed and that we can move forward. And I am hopeful that we're able to do that, because I think there's a lot of excitement about bringing this project online.
Thank you. I want to personally thank Vice President Thomas. She has spent a lot of time working with the foundation and also with the community, and I appreciate you representing us and really working towards this, because it's been a proposal and a project that's been on the books for a while, and it's exciting to finally get closer to the finish line on this. So thank you for your work.
My pleasure.
Any other comments or questions? If not, is there any motion to move forward?
A second.
Great. There's a motion to approve the design and award of this project. Is there any other questions? If not, can we have a voice vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Jenny. And thank you, Cindy, for your work on this. And I think it will be a great addition to the community. So thank you for your work on it. Okay, we'll move to grant application. Craig is here. Kara, should we?
Please proceed. Craig's got it. Thank you.
Morning, Commissioners. We have a couple of grant applications from the Parks Foundation. The first one is a busing grant. This is for our Nature's Connection program. It's an $8,000 busing grant to help inner city and underserved youths be bused to the Nature Connection program. The second one is a $4,744 maintenance grant for the Inwood tree planting, which has occurred in November. The $4,744 will be used for continued maintenance of the 40 trees that were planted. If you have any questions, Crystal is available. Crystal Courtney, our Division Manager for Natural Resource, is available to answer.
Good morning, Crystal.
Looks like we have Jennifer on here too.
And Jennifer, good morning.
Morning.
Do we have questions from the commissioners on this?
I did have a question, just for my own information. How do you decide who gets access to the grant for the busing?
I will allow Jennifer or Crystal to answer that. I know we do have a process, but I don't want to go through the process.
Yeah, thank you, Linda Lee. This has been a long-standing program with Cincinnati Parks, and we do use the Title I federal free lunch program to determine which schools we visit each year. And so this program allows us to go to each school twice, and then for the third visit, we bring them to Avon Woods Nature Center. So that's where the busing comes in. We have approximately 28 buses that we have to accommodate, and those, we're estimating the cost of that this year to be about $275 for each bus.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? I'll just once again thank our partners with the Cincinnati Parks Foundation for their efforts to provide the funding for this type of activity. I know the busing has been well used over the past several years, and we just really appreciate the work the foundation does. Do we have a motion? Oh, question?
Could I just add and acknowledge Madtree? I mean, they've just been
absolutely
such exceptional partners to the foundation and to the parks, and they've really tapped into their entire employment base to support the parks, and they're so appreciated.
I saw photos of the tree planting, and to your point,
Oh, yeah.
I think the entire personnel of Madtree Brewing was out and helping to plant these trees. So you're absolutely right, Commissioner. It's
I just want to give one more plug.
That's great.
Knowing the Madtree folks well, they actually provide days off that are paid where every employee is expected to give back in some way to the community. And they have selected the parks as one of their sponsored partners in this benefit and initiative. So we're very lucky to have their partnership.
absolutely
Great.
So after your walk in one of our parks, please visit Madtree. No, it's extremely great partnership we have with them. So thank you. Do we have a motion on this recommendation?
One more question
Yep.
for Jennifer. We only pay for the bus if it shows up, right? Because I know I'm engaged in other bus activities, and currently there's a lot of no-shows, the bus isn't available, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm gonna make sure that that 275 is only if the driver and the bus shows up to deliver the kids and bring them back home.
That is my understanding. We are in the initial phases of scheduling those buses. We're at this point hoping that there's enough bus drivers to accommodate all the children that we would love to bring into our Avon Fields Nature Center. So I will make a point that it is a city contract that we use. So I would hope that they would honor having those buses available if we're paying for them.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So any other questions? Do we have a motion on this?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the request as recommended by the staff. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. Well, thank you, Craig. Thank you, Crystal and Jennifer as well.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Our next item is contracts and agreements related to the Sinton roof replacement. Mary?
Morning. The board's established guidelines for items requiring their review, including contracts over $50,000 and agreements with terms exceeding 12 months. The single contract before you is up for your approval, and then Cindy France is on the call to give a brief description and answer any questions you might have.
Cindy, we're to you again.
Yep, this is an easy one. We're just looking to replace the roof at the Sinton building. It's one of our service buildings, and it is a project that was called out in the facility study.
And Cindy, was this competitively bid?
We put it through the MAC process, so it was competitively bid with 5 or 6 contractors.
Perfect. Are there questions related to this contract?
No.
If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the staff's recommendation to let this contract for Centton Building. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
And thank you to Mary as well. All right, next we have strategic plan. Kara, did you want to make a comment on this?
I would. Thank you very much, President Getz. Commissioners, I regret that I do not have a presentation to give to you today. Commissioner Getz and I were able to speak yesterday on the status of this project. It is coming along, and it is coming along very well. I've had an opportunity to speak with most of you this week on the design of the strategic plan, the content of the strategic plan. I believe that you're going to be incredibly satisfied with, and we want to get that in front of you in a very timely manner to allow for your input as we continue over the next 30 days. But regrettably, due to some extenuating circumstances, I am unprepared to present that to you today. And again, Commissioner Getz and I did have that conversation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have at this moment regarding all of the hard work that the team has been doing with our consultant in order to progress this conversation. But at this time, again, I regret that I do not have a presentation to provide.
And Kara, I think our discussion was that Kara is working on something that once completed, that document will be forwarded to us. We won't wait for it to be included in the packet for December, but as soon as that's available, it'll be distributed to everybody. And Kara, it's up to you if you want to put this back on December, that'll be your call.
Yes, I would like to, and timing to get that initial document to you, I'm looking at early next week, which will allow for us to individually engage as well as through email correspondence with the intention of putting it back on the December agenda for further discussion.
Great. Any questions?
So the intent of the December meeting then would be further discussion on what is presented in the document that you sent to us?
Yeah, we've given ourselves a little bit of leeway. I think January is the latest that we would like to see the document approved by the board. So depending on your comfortableness with the document, based on conversations we've been able to have individually over the next 30 days, whether or not the board would want to follow up with approval in December or as kind of planned would be in January. It really will be up to the board, but I do foresee that December will be another conversation with adoption in January.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Okay, we'll move on. The next agenda topic is the fiscal year 23 capital budget. Kara, you want to set this up for us?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm extremely pleased to provide you with a first reading of the FY23 capital budget. This is a budget that staff has taken a lot of care and effort to update what was originally presented to you last year when we presented the biannual capital budget. As you're aware, the city only approves FY22. At the time, you submitted quite a large budget request. It was approved at $2 million. So we brought that back to you for further allocation. And now we begin the process with the FY23 budget. The budget, Ms. France will walk us through. Once we have a discussion around the FY23 budget, would also like to have a conversation with you regarding the ARP dollars and whether or not there are ideas as a staff to put forward to the board for an approximately $30 million request. So we'll begin the discussion with the FY23 rehabilitation budget and exceptions, and then move on to the FY30. or I'm sorry, the $30 million. So Ms. France, at this time, would you give us some insight and overview of the FY23 recommended budget?
Sure. As we prepare the fiscal year 23 capital budget, we continue to focus on projects that were specifically called out in the facility study. The projects are highlighted as yellow or orange on the spreadsheet. We are particularly interested in addressing the circulation issues that we are seeing at McAvoy Park and several roof replacements at our major pavilions. We have demonstrated our continued commitment to playground replacements by including a budget for 2 new play sets and our commitment to improving accessibility in our parks. The facility study also recommended that we carry an annual budget number for our water features, utility maintenance, and emergency damage and vandalism. These numbers are also included in the budget. We've developed this budget with input from DNR and operations, and we feel that it is an appropriate dollar amount to support our park system. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I wish you were here in person.
I'm sorry.
So my understanding, Kara and Cindy, is that you're calling this a first reading, so to speak, where this is presented and you will be looking for input from us either today or over the next couple weeks on the specifics of this plan?
Yes, I would say preferably today. We would love to actively engage in a discussion with you. Obviously, any further comments beyond today, we are open to and will strongly consider. This is our best attempt to capture what we believe the not only the necessities for operations of our facilities, but to speak to the capital projects that we believe would be of interest to the park board. So any immediate reactions that you have would be extremely valuable today. And we will take that information back and make any adjustments as you request. As Cindy stated, and as I kind of alluded to earlier, while we know that the city has given us a target of approximately $2 million, we have submitted to you a request today for consideration of $4 million with a $2.1 million in exceptions. This is a demonstrative of the need that we have in order to address capital resources. And if the target is not changed by the city, then we will return to you as we did last year with a reallocation of the funds that we've received.
So for clarity, then you're saying that's 4 million plus the 2.1 million of exceptions is what you'd be looking for.
Yes, sir.
And can you explain then the additional 29 million?
Right.
What is that?
Sure. So this is an additional conversation for the commissioners to have. Last year, during the announcement of the American Recovery Act dollars, we went through a long process together, staff and commissioners, where we kind of went on a roller coaster ride of providing large dollar amount items that we were recommending to the city's administration for allocation of those resources. It started with a conversation on shovel-ready projects. It then moved to transformational capital projects. And ultimately, we were informed by the city administration that capital projects were not permissible. We submitted projects and initiatives, and ultimately the city did not utilize any of the ARP dollars for the purposes of funding parks, although we did see several million additional dollars added into our capital budget. The US Treasury actually issued clarification and guidance to cities on the appropriate utilization of the ARP dollars. And within that guidelines, which was issued after the city of Cincinnati passed their capital budget, indicates that these dollars may be used on infrastructure projects, specifically may be used on park rehabilitation and park development projects. So with that additional information, we are bringing forward to you again a list that quite mimics the list that we put together, although there are some differences. but a list of approximately $30 million in projects that we've wanted to present to you today for your consideration. The $30 million is approximately $20 million associated with items that are on the infrastructure study, and approximately $10 million towards some transformational projects. At this time, we are just asking for your feedback on this. What will be required as a commission is to discuss whether or not we would like to put forward our request for FY23 dollars from the ARP dollars, and if so, how we would like to make that ask. But at this time, we are just asking you to review some of the content that we've included to see if we are on track with what the commissioners would prioritize.
So for process, why would we not submit the $4 million? And why wouldn't we have exceptions of $32 million instead of $2 million? It seems to me that the way we're approaching this, we're trying to find funding sources for needs. And in my opinion, that's up to the city council to figure out. I think it's incumbent upon us to say, here's what we really need or want as it relates to these transformational items. Here's what we really need. And if that is 22 million or 32 million, I think we need to spell that out to the city council. And then if they would choose to consider out of ARP funding or whatever, I mean, that's their job to figure out where the funding can come from. But I would strongly recommend that we, as we present a capital request to the city, that we are clear, here's what we really need based on the study that we have just commissioned. That's just my thoughts.
I heartily agree with you, Jim. Heartily agree with you.
Another thing I think that would be helpful for our audience is for them to understand how much of that capital budget goes to labor.
Yeah, well, currently it is approximately $870,000. And when we receive an annual allocation of approximately and consistently $2 million, you are looking at quite a significant amount of our capital resources, which are required to go towards salaries annually for that department and that division. Yeah, it's quite a significant amount of our annual appropriation.
So we have basically $1.1 million to cover 5,000 acres. I don't know how many miles of roads, sewers, light fixtures, buildings, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, in my mind, the 32 million is just kind of scratching the surface. I think there's great justification for the need, great examples of the needs, and how we really haven't had much in any way of that capital being able to really be directed towards those physical improvements that are so necessary. So much of it has been gone to
salaries,
staffing, funding staffing. So just important for everybody to understand that.
I just want to juxtapose this 2-page report to 30 sheets of paper that we got regarding Westwood Dora. I mean, these 2 pieces of paper are really the whole crux of why a park board even exists, in my estimation, is determining what the needs of the parks are and then finding paths to support those projects. And it is, I think, a tall order to ask a park board to opine on a 2-page document without context of a more macro view of how the park staff is determining where the priorities are. And this is really the root of the strategic planning process. And let's not overstate what that process is. What we're really talking about for the strategic plan is, what do we seek to accomplish for these parks over the next 3 years? How are we going to prioritize what we want to do? And then how can we get armed with the right level of information and the right case to make for the parks so that we can, lobby for resources to be granted to the parks. And I'm just, I know that there's work to do and this is the first reading, but it's just very difficult to give feedback on a list without a broader context.
The facility study.
I don't even know what a lot of this stuff is because, for instance, the Burnett Woods Road restoration, I thought we were talking about road removal. So there's just so much to discuss here. I don't even know how. I feel ill-equipped to kind of dig in on, a list that's really underlined or is over top of just a massive amount of information. So.
Mr. President,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm in the same place in terms of feeling not equipped to give you quality feedback. The thing that I do appreciate is the yellow and orange highlights. Because I always want to go back to those things we have identified in the study that we need to pay attention to. And as I recall, those things, especially the yellow ones, are ones that we need to focus on over the next 2 years. So it will be helpful to me as you provide additional information so that we can dig in and give quality feedback to understand, if I look at the yellow on these pages, how much are we addressing the needs that we've identified? How far along that path are we? And just a little bit of understanding about how you're making choices, because I'm sure there are other yellow items, poor items that need to be addressed over the next 2 years. So just understanding how you're making choices about what is in and what is out as we go about the next year and the next 2 years.
I have a real simple question. Where do the numbers come from? How do you come up with these numbers?
A lot of the numbers are coming right out of the assessment. The assessment provided cost estimates for a lot of this work.
From the, okay,
From the infrastructure
from the
study?
infrastructure report?
Yes.
20 million of it. See, that first section is from the assessment. And then there are an additional $10 million of projects on B. Karen, I think we've talked about, or at least I brought this up a couple of times, the notorious $74 million report. Identifying in detail on that report, we have to make decisions about we plan to do something where we don't plan to do something. And if we plan to do something, giving it some type of priority status, which we're really, we're
Saying the same thing.
We're saying the same
Yep.
stuff here.
Right.
It's just, we have no transparency on how we arrived at this. And this is really set up for all of us bringing some pet projects to the table. Well, I saw this building and the roof looked bad and I think it should be fixed. And it's just not, I speak for myself and I presume others that that's not the approach that is best taken.
Well, commissioners, we are being very systematic about this. We've been speaking to you that getting through that infrastructure study and actually determining what of the approximately $74 million are items that we actually should proceed forward on. And the mechanism that we wanted to use for that was to utilize the addition of our senior architect to begin to make those recommendations for us to review those studies, which is now currently underway. Our senior architect is in his 4th week of employment with us, and so those will be able to come. When we brought you the biannual FY22 and 23 budget, and now returning for the FY23, we, in an effort to make sure that we were hitting on those items to the greatest extent, we're looking at those fair and poor. We did internally analyze whether or not the ones that we were providing to you were the ones or were ones that should come forward to you, and they all easily made it on the list of yes, these are things that we should achieve. So as we start to see ourselves move past the poor and fair, there will be a lot more systematic identification of which projects should be included. But at this moment, for the FY22 and as presented in the FY23, these are all very dire projects that were either most in poor, some in fair. And so while I fully acknowledge Commissioner North that, that these items that were selected don't come from some greater study that we've done on the infrastructure study, there was thought and consideration to them. And as we continue to proceed forward in our capital budget development, every item within the infrastructure study will have received
So
analysis.
for instance, on something that's classified as poor, what's the system for even determining that we desire to improve it? For instance, the staff determined that the Owl's Nest building was in poor condition and that we did not desire to do anything with the building. So it was decided to tear it down. So are you just taking poor and saying we want to improve it, or are you taking poor and saying we have no transparency? You say it's systematic, but it is not evident in this information that there's a system for our understanding.
Sure. I think the system that's being used right now and the system that was used previously was staff judgment. And that specifically with the Owl's Nest, that was staff judgment that was brought forward to the board a long time ago prior to any of us. There were decisions made on that. And then when it was when it's beginning to be executed, that's when questions about whether or not that was an appropriate decision. And so at this time, when we are just looking at those poor and fair, we are having internal staff discussions about whether or not we should proceed, which is why they've made it on here. When we actually conduct the analysis of the infrastructure study, there will be an agreed upon list between staff recommendation and board approval that we will continue to work from. But at this time, we have not completed that exercise. So as of today, the process is staff review recommendations provided in the capital budget request. Further down the line, it will be working from a list of staff recommended, board approved priorities. We're trying to bridge the gap between how things have been done and our desired destination. One of the strongest things that we've done regarding our capital budget is to return to the board with the FY22 budget when a portion, the 2 million was approved rather than the 6 million that you asked for, and make sure that the priorities that were identified, the recommendations that were identified by staff were approved by the board. So there's a desired destination that we're getting to, but we're still in that process of getting there and trying to get to a place where not only the recommended budget is something that the board approves of, but when we actually finalize the budget after the city allocates the dollars, that is also in line with the board's wishes.
Well, let me just state them where I'll be comfortable in making a motion and approving a list like this. I really would like to lobby for these ARP dollars. I think this is an opportunity that we will not ever have again.
Yeah.
And we have to make sure that we are in a lead and very strong position to illustrate to the new administration, the new council, that we are ready to put these dollars to work and that it is going to advance Cincinnati on a broad scale. And I think in order for us as the park board to do that, we have to start with a broader view of how these dollars can advance us. And in part, that may be a new project, but it also may be taking this 74 million and identifying the assets of the parks, determining the value that they can bring if more funds are invested in them, and then making a case for how strong that value is, and ultimately proposing that the dollars be placed in these. And this is just not near the level of information that we're going to need to make that case. I mean, there's nothing on here that I feel like I could sit in front of a council member and really make a strong case for. It just feels like a list and it doesn't seem to answer, I think, the questions that we're all looking to arrive at for making these big investments. So I think a lot more work needs to be done. for the
So
board.
can I get specific in what you're asking for? So you want each of these items to have a backup to why they chose it, how they chose it, and what they're gonna do with it.
No, I mean, ideally that exists somewhere, but for our purposes, I see just a much more comprehensive schedule. Maybe it's a bigger spreadsheet that's got all this $74 million of items. And I'd like to understand if we have a shuttered community building, I'd like for the park board to say, having a community building that is active, it would be valuable to the community and we could support that if we had funding for it. Or we can say, we don't have the funding to support it, or I mean, we don't have the operational funding to support it. It doesn't provide any value to the community. Therefore, we don't propose to invest funding in this. So where I'm going is there are assets that the parks have that provide no future value, at least as we see it. We need to put those to the side and come up with a plan for, shelving whatever those assets are, whatever way it may be. There are assets that the parks have that if and reinvested in, they could provide great value to the community. We hear all the time from the Clifton community, if this nature center were reinvested in, it would provide great value to the community. We may or may not agree with that as a park board, but that's the level of information I'm asking for. I can't say whether this roof replacement is more important than some other item that they did not put on here, but I'd like to have enough information at my availability to be able to agree with staff that the exercise that's been done, yes, we won't all get what we want out of this, but that we agree as a park board that these priorities really are the right priorities. And I just don't think there's enough information for that here.
I'd like to add, our ability to continue to provide you with some more substantial information to assist the board with making the determination of the FY23 capital budget and the ARP dollars. We will certainly aim to get the board as much information as we can to help you support that. However, I would state that the system-wide assessment of the infrastructure study, I do not believe can be complete for you to make decisions based on this FY23 budget, at least for the purposes of submitting it to the city. This is going to be a 6-month process of evaluation by our staff, discussions amongst our staff, recommendations put forward to the board, discussions by the board to come up with, to fully evaluate the infrastructure study and have line by line the prioritizations, recommendations from the staff and the board. But I do not foresee that would be an available resource to you by the end of this year to make the decisions on this FY23 budget. Although it's been, I believe it's been an agreed upon understanding between the staff and the board that that's where we were heading.
Kara, I don't get that. I can't understand why it would take that long, because presumably you've actually done that. Whether it's been documented or not is not clear, but presumably there has been a prioritization for these 2 pages to be arrived at. I can't believe, I really don't understand the point of getting the study if we didn't have a plan to prioritize the outcome and content of that study. Otherwise it becomes a study for study's sake. I mean, I'm getting animated to make a point here, but this is the same point I've been raising since January, is how do we determine what our priorities are so that we can, and also what our needs are so that we can actively lobby resources to make these parks great.
And to be very direct, the study's been in-house for how long now?
Has it been 2
So there's
years?
plenty of time to go through it and decide and to bring forward to
I
us
see 1 year.
what you think is worth keeping and what you think is not worth keeping. So I kind of disagree that we're just out of order here.
The one thing, if I understand you, Molly, is you're kind of looking for where we're at today, where the opportunities are tomorrow. Have these guys kind of filter through the study as well as, I guess, some ideations or creativity that says we could do this, that, and the other in these locations. So that would warrant more emphasis, more focus and or investment than something else that says, hey, this doesn't provide a lot of value going forward. So let's either decommission it or put it at the bottom of the list.
Right. Here's where we are. Here's where we want to be. Can't do it all. Let this go. Let's be proactive in what we want to do. Otherwise, we're just a reactionary.
Yeah, I think part of what we've done is to kind of say, identify, you mentioned roofs. If the roof goes, you're screwed pretty much, right? So if nothing else, let's at least stop the damage of certain things and buy some time to make those decisions.
But the big question is, do you still need that building?
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Hopefully,
the kind of-
they're re-roofing a
Right.
building that has, a long-term, history going forward or future.
But the-
Commissioners, I do believe that we have been utilizing the study over the past 2 years, or over the past year. What we have presented to you, both the recommended and approved FY22 capital budget and what we're presenting to you today with the recommended FY23 budget has pulled from that infrastructure study, even before we had a final document in front of us, has pulled and highlighted quite a few of those items that were on the poor and fair. What I am attempting to convey is that the full review of the study, the staff recommendations to bring to the board on the thousands of items, that is what has not yet been conducted.
Well, if I could recommend, I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
If I could recommend that, I think at minimum, as it relates to the infrastructure study, if we could get an extract of here's a listing of the poor and fair conditioned items, and that we can then compare to what you are bringing forth for fiscal 23, just so we can see, here's what you have extracted from that, so that we can also see what hasn't been chosen to be addressed in 23. That way we can help in the process of say, what was your thinking, or how did you come to this prioritization? Because I think part of that will also be, I would like to see this, I don't know if it's color coded or what, but I would like to see the demographics of what we propose to do. In other words, are we being equitable in what we have established, or is this concentrated in a few neighborhoods versus hitting neighborhoods throughout the city? So that's just one type of, I think, piece of information that would help as we evaluate specifically what you're proposing for 23.
Sure, we can definitely provide that. I believe we did when we presented the biannual budget for FY22 and 23. There was a list of all the poor and all the fair. Because at that point.
Then that should be easy. If it's already been done, then it should have been included in our packet. But go ahead, Linda.
Yes, thank you for your comment, because I think that was what I was attempting to say at the very beginning of this, is that I'm sure you used the process. There's no doubt about it, because you arrived at these numbers on the page. But one of the issues for me is understanding that, and I don't have to know all the details, but just how is this in and this out? And then how much of the things that were considered, how far are we moving along the path of clearing those? And then if we understand where we are, then we can engage with, then how do we make the right story around that so it makes sense? to others who have to make a decision on whether or not we get what we're asking for. Because I don't know that we can make the story now. And so what is that? And part of it, I think you've already addressed, but the rest of it, I think it needs to be formed, at least in a way that I can carry around in my head. So when I have to respond to somebody, if somebody asks about it, or justify or promote while we're trying to do it, we've got the ammunition to do that. And right now we don't have that.
Can I show you a document that I use that I use to select the projects on the list? It's not very high tech, but this is just the list of poor and fair. We have, it's maybe 15 pages long. And if you can see in a column all the way to the side, I have numbers written down.
I was gonna say we could get that later if it's.
Yes, so it's not very high tech, but every year I go through this list and I mark the fiscal year that I'm including the projects on. And that's what I use to help determine which project should be included in the budget. And yes, we do also consider East Side and West Side. And we always set aside a certain amount of money that we're going to use for accessibility projects. And we'll come up with a couple in different areas that we think are important. Again, West Side and East Side. And then we'll leave, we'll leave ourselves maybe $50,000 for any other projects that happen to come along. Maybe a patron points something out to us, something that should be addressed, or somebody from operations tells us that there's a project that we need to take care of, and we'll go and take a look at it and see if we can address it with that extra little pocket of money we have. The projects that are on the list that are not highlighted in yellow and orange, they almost always come from maintenance. So if you look at the fiscal year 23 budget right now, there's a large dollar number for Mount Echo Park Pavilion for a roof repair. And the reason why that is on the list is because the facility specialist who used to take care of that park would come and leave pieces of the roof on my desk from time to time. So just to get the point across that it was something that we needed to address. Now, it was not included in the assessment that Branstad or Carroll did. It's a very good assessment that they did, but the roof is high. It's hard to see the condition of it, and it might have been something that was just missed by them. But we, trust our staff to point out problems to us. The Waterfront Administration HVAC renovation that is listed for a fiscal year 23 project also came from our facility staff. The system is 30 years old. It needs to be addressed. Wasn't on the list. I don't know why. So the list is a great, like this assessment and this spreadsheet are really great tools. But there's a lot of, we're just really familiar. We have a lot more familiarity with these structures and understand better issues we've had with them over the years than a team of architects or engineers coming in may not necessarily see and might not have been addressed in the study. So
Cindy, you started this with something I think that's really important, which is you started talking about objectives, which you talked about a distribution of resources across the city from the east to the west. You talked about accessibility. Again, I think and we've talked a bit about this, of having objectives of, we have new and updated playgrounds at all of our, we have to start this process with objectives. What do we seek to achieve before we start circulating a list? Because we're all going to have different personal objectives, but if we're managing this well, we're coalescing around a shared vision and objectives for the park system. And that is definitely not apparent in what we're getting here. But what you're saying is we actually do have objectives, but we as a park board do not have any transparency into what those are.
And I absolutely agree with you. And I think, Carrie, you're looking for feedback, and I think what you may be hearing here is, I appreciate Cindy hearing about the process, and I'm glad to know some of the steps that you took to get there. What we're saying, though, is that we're seeing, I think, an output, a 2-page output of the final product of that process. And I think what you're hearing here today is we would just like visibility into what was that process you went through. We don't need to see the 15-page report, as long as we know here's one of the steps that we took as part of the process to develop this 2-page report that we were provided. So I would ask that as you prepare for your December 2nd viewing, I would not wait till that packet to come to us, but as you are going back now and taking this input, think about what you can present to us between now and the December meeting to give us more visibility into what was the process and what was the genesis? How did you get to this 2-page?
Yep, we can absolutely do that. I do appreciate the feedback of the board.
One thing, and maybe it's following up on what Linda suggested, is I can't remember how many or what percent of that 74 million was in floor and fair condition, but I know it was in a pretty significant percentage. To see where we've come from the start of this gives us, like what of the poor have been checked off the list. Yeah, and to get a sense of, okay, how many years is it going to take? If we're checking, $500,000 a year off the list of poor projects, it's going to, we'll all be dead before this thing is finished. So I think to give us some context as to the rate of progress and call it the timeline, and that I think would I think speak volumes towards the federal $30 million money that we're asking for.
It's gonna happen before we're dead.
Huh?
It's gonna happen before we're dead.
I hope that does.
She's the young one. in the class.
Yeah, exactly. Easy for her to say, right? Thank you. Okay, Kara, do you have input? You know
Yes,
where
we
we're
do.
go-
Thank you very much for the participation of the board.
Okay. We're now to open commissioner discussion and comments. Are there some specific issues, items that you'd like to bring up?
Would somebody please define for me what the blue line means in this report?
On the French house,
Which one? French
Sorry,
house.
Could somebody help me?
you're talking about this big.
Yeah.
It's
the
in our
only one that
packet.
has
What's the blue highlighted on the big spreadsheet?
It was,
What does it signify? It isn't stated anywhere, so it's kind of, I wonder why they did it.
There's some more of them.
were you certifying funds?
I
for the
can
French
answer
house?
that. I can
This
answer
is-
that. The blue line on that spreadsheet, it's like just an internal tracking thing. I should have turned it off. But the blue lines kind of highlight the projects that our facility management group is spearheading as the lead on those projects with our assistance.
I didn't
But
understand.
we shouldn't have to think about that.
They're kind of.
That's internal.
Their
Yeah.
people are taking the lead on that, making it happen, as opposed to contracting it out to an outside third party.
It's being done in-house.
Internally, yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you. That's helpful.
I do have a question, if President Getz, about Smale. Someone raised this to me today and I noticed it myself, we've invested a lot, and this might be for you, Jeff, or maybe Cindy, is we've invested so much with Icon, and we're talking about investing more. I know it's private dollars coming into Block 23, and as we're talking about the boat dock, what is the status of all the playground equipment, all the exercise equipment? Some of it's really struggling. Do we have funds to keep up to date with that park and keep it the world-class park that it was?
So yes, we do have funds in order to do so. Some of that is, I believe, the playground equipment, Cindy, I'll probably reference to possibly, but
That's me.
sorry, I forgot that in my stuff. Some of the fitness equipment has been on order for a very long time
Okay.
and just has not arrived at this point. Cindy, are these pieces of equipment, are those that are coming from Germany, is that correct? Or is that, am I mixing that up with the light poles? Do you know the fitness equipment at Smale?
The fitness equipment at Smale I think that's the equipment that comes from Germany.
And it has been on order for quite some time.
Okay.
The playgrounds themselves, the facility teams are looking at the playground. There is a rope that needs to be replaced very soon, but they do inspections on those and are taking appropriate actions in order to get things changed.
And then what about the piano? It's been on and off, works, doesn't it?
It's offline.
It is offline because we removed it originally because when the flood.
Oh, I see.
And then the bridge work that is occurring on the Brooklyn Bridge, which I think has subsided. But underneath the bridge itself is where the electric is the source of electric, sorry, that manages the piano. So we just never replaced the piano because that bridge work was for a year and we wouldn't have.
But it's complete now, correct?
It is complete, so it should.
So it should be
going back
being
on.
replaced.
Correct.
You know, I'm sure this goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. This is such a critically important park and we have to keep up with it. It can't find its way someday to the $74 million report. I mean, this is our front door. If there's any park that visitors or potential new residents or potential new businesses come to see, it's this park. And when we have broken equipment there, it sends a whole message about, is the city broken? It's just so important for this to continue to be just a top-notch experience for everyone.
And there is trust money for that. I mean, there's no lack of money to take care of Smale Park. So, yeah, I think your point is very well taken. It is our front door.
And it's
So-
wonderful.
And the squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Yeah. So I'll just, there's a little squeak to it.
There.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And this isn't exactly a squeak, it's a question about the other parks. Is there a mechanism in place? Because I know staff is always out there. They're looking at the equipment to make sure we're not experiencing any safety issues. But is there a mechanism whereby friends in these different parks can provide comments to us, because we can't be everywhere all the time, to say, here's something that you might need to take a look at. It's not you have to jump to that, but at least you've got eyes in every park, because there are there's certain parks that people are in, or I should say it another way, for every park, there's somebody who's in that park almost every day, and they notice when things are in order or out of order. Is there a way that they can easily get comments to us?
Well, there are methods if something is broken. It is called a CSR, customer service request. I cannot say that that method is very well known. I mean, you can certainly go to the city website, so we can improve on that. But that's to the point where it's already broken, or they have they're typically complaints, to be honest. And we will address certainly those, and they're tracked how long they're open and when they were, acted upon. However, you bring up a very good point. I don't know, besides getting feedback from maybe our CPACs or other areas, I don't know that we have a method for individuals or a very well-known method. Certainly people can reach out to the managers in the parks and other things, but, and people do that. They certainly email the managers and let them know what their concerns are, what they've seen. But But that's a very good comment, and we can certainly investigate on how that can be something that is not only known throughout the neighborhoods, but something that we can use to evaluate what's
Is-
going on.
Could this simply be taken care of with a sign that tells you if you see something that is not correct, call this number?
I like
Or
that number.
Well,
I
and
mean-
that's where we've got to build behind
Yeah.
what is that process? And that's
Yeah.
where I think the sign is the end product of how you access the process. You know, you can get to a point where it's a QR code or you get a phone number or whatever it is. I think it's an excellent point that we should, it's sort of like going into a UDF and asking for customer feedback, you know, give us comments back. How do we engage or how do we facilitate our park visitors giving us feedback? And so that might be something that would be worthwhile for you guys to kick through.
And to make it easy to do so.
Yeah,
We do have, on the existing website, there's a contact us page. It's got links where people can click and send an email based on the program or the district that they're talking about. So West District, when the email's populated, they can send an email. That's something that'll be included and improved on the new website, which we're going to be launching. As somebody that attends a lot of CPAC meetings, I would say a good 50% of the information exchange that happens there are about issues or things that they're seeing in the parks, issues with restrooms, signage, litter, what have you. So again, as we move through the process of better defining what the CPACs are doing, what the guidelines are for the CPACs, that's something that's going to also be reinforced. And yeah, I think that's a great suggestion about the signs. Once we have the new website launched, we could have QR codes, and we're planning to have these already on Crystal Courtney's project about redoing the signage for each of the parks. And we're looking to create a kiosk, like a welcome kiosk for all at least the larger parks. And on that page right there, there would be a QR code we could scan that would take them right to our website and show them how to contact us.
yeah. Well, let me summarize all that. You know, from you've heard our recommendation or our suggestion that you establish what is the park's method or desired way of receiving feedback. So come back to us and say, here's what it is.
Sounds good.
Any other,
I just want to offer a little bit of positive feedback. The landscaping installation that you just did a month or so ago at Mount Storm is absolutely gorgeous. I was glad to see that. It's wonderful. And number two, our children are very much looking forward to the Harvest Day camp next week. So it is a wonderful service that the parks provide families. So we're excited about that.
Extend that to the staff.
I would, as an old person, I would put forward, please, when you redo the signs, I think these little doo-ahs that you can do with your phone and all that is just wonderful, but please, put a simple phone number.
All right.
Yes, that's true.
I do have one piece of business that I would like to bring up. As you all recall, we hired a third-party attorney to help us with identifying issues in our endowment trusts and some items that we need to finalize. We also are continuing with discussions with the Greater Cincinnati Foundation for how the bicentennial trusts funding will work, commonly known as the BOV funds. As an FYI, those funds have grown to over $8 million sitting in that trust, and we are trying to work through how that whole process is going to work as it relates to the trust documents. Having said that, we would like to re-engage the third-party attorney that we had used up to this point in time to help us finalize agreements with GCF and also look at some of the cleanup things that we had brought forward from his last review. To do that, we would like to, we've talked with the city solicitor's office. We'd like to extend that contract, which is now expired. So I would be asking if we would approve as a commission a not to exceed amount of $10,000. It's not $50,000 that I'm bringing to you, but I'd like for us to approve a $10,000 in case Craig doesn't have that in funds available through the commissioners. So I would like to move that the commissioners approve up to $10,000 of additional legal work to facilitate finalization of endowment trust issues,
And the funds would be coming from
commissioners' funds.
funds. Okay.
So I'll make that as a motion.
Second.
There's a second. Any other questions on that?
Is there a specific time period associated with that?
We would make it, we want to do this as soon as possible. So we had, just so you all know, Kara and Craig and I had a meeting with GCF a couple weeks ago. So we are engaged with them and they also want to get this finalized. They are engaging their attorney to help with this, and that's why we would like to engage our attorney as well. So quickly, I would say we would want to extend the contract immediately so that we can re-engage and get this brought to a head. So we do have a motion and a second. Any other?
No, I don't have any other comments.
Okay, we have a motion to approve, authorize up to $10,000. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Any other commissioner have any specific discussion, comments, items?
The only, and maybe it's just me, but, this is titled capital improvement projects, and to me, it's organized by fund, not by project. And it's just challenging. You have to go, a project will show up through, half a dozen times on here, so you don't really get a sense of the overall scale, scope, and history of the project. I would suggest that maybe we look at, not necessarily banning this, but at least providing some information for us that looks at it from a project base. And not everything has to, I think, rise up to that level. I mean, maybe just certain projects of a particular size could have a start and a history following the project, not necessarily where the fund is, what fund is funding what aspect of the project.
That is a recurring comment. I know, I think the last time I brought that up was in relation to just what exactly did we pay for Tom Jones Commons? I mean, that's another example where it's in a few different lines.
It's not a way
So,
to find out.
Yeah.
Right.
And the reason all these funds exist has to do with the MOU and having to redone the city thing. It's us. All these numbers.
Those numbers, there's always been capital accounts with the city that I think it's organized into source of funds, basically.
Mhm.
And that's where it's organized as to here's what's coming out of the approved 2022 capital campaign. So that's how and it's not necessarily because of the MOU. I think this has been done. Cindy, you've probably been working with this type of report based on source of funds forever.
The spreadsheet
You're
that
on
is,
mute, Cindy.
I am.
There you are.
Okay. This spreadsheet that is attached is a working tool that I use to keep track of the balances and all of the funds with some added information to try to help the commissioners understand like what each one of the project funds is really set up for. There's also just a monthly planning and design update that's a few pages long in your packet that goes through some of the major projects, and it does break out like what the total budget is for the project and how the project is being funded, and gives like a little bit of a summary of the history of the project, if that's what you're looking for. If there's more projects, like I think right now we've pulled out maybe a dozen or so major projects that planning and design is working on. If you like this format, that's more of a narrative, I'm happy to add additional projects on this list. So maybe projects that just go, capital projects that are $50,000 or more, if that's sort of like a good, because we have so many projects that we're working on right now. I think we counted the other day, there's 96 active projects that planning and design is working on right now. So to do a narrative of all of those, that might be a little bit,
Yeah,
that might be a little much.
That's not what I'm suggesting, and I think 50,000 is way too low. You know, I think the threshold to have a more narrative and call it historical tracking of a project should be a lot greater than 50,000. I don't know what the number is, but I can appreciate the number of projects you guys have. And I'm not, worried about the smaller stuff or wanting to keep track of that or get some sense of progress, but I don't know what the right number would be, but you might look and say, of those 90 something projects, how many are under the threshold of, $200,000 or something? And I don't know what the right cutoff would be, but I wouldn't want you to go through all of that effort. I think that would be a waste of time.
Do you like the written narrative, or is that format something that you would want to see changed as well?
I mean, I like it better than your tool, and I understand that is a working tool for you and works well. But to me, this is a better approach. I don't know if it's exactly what I'm looking for, but leave that up to somebody else.
Well, I think it's an example and that we will continue to work on what is the optimal reporting on capital. It's an ongoing question. So I think. Go ahead, Kara.
It is an ongoing question, and it's also been something that I believe I've consistently committed to the board. This is overall project management and the opportunity to effectively communicate not only where we are in projects, but also to give light to if and when intervention is necessary in order to advance projects, are all commitments that we have made or we've discussed, and am looking to the incoming division manager to really lead us through that process of creating not only a project management system, but also tools that allow us to effectively communicate. So I just want to echo President Linder, what you just said, Commissioner Linder, President Getz, you just stated, and I have heard that loud and clear from every commissioner. And just want to continue to commit that is the direction that we're heading, so that you have effective tools in front of you regularly that allow you to understand exactly where projects are, and we'll be able to know in advance whether or not an intervention is necessary in order to advance the project.
Great. Thank you, Kara. Are there any other comments, issues to bring up from the commissioners? Okay. Staff comments, do you have anything to add? I assume, Rocky, you're going to do that?
It looks like, Jim, that the
sun's coming out.
Sun's coming out, so they listen to you. And yeah, just to reiterate, you mentioned this as well, Commissioner North. Even though it's getting colder, there's a lot of great things happening in our parks. Explore Nature is doing a wonderful program where people can do crafting. They've got opportunities in person, but also virtual, where people can pick up a crafting kit and then they can take it home, watch an instructional video, learn about what they're doing. Lots of opportunities like that. La Widow Woods is a good example. We also have the winter break camps to give families a break for their kids over the winter. These are unlike the summer camps, which are a week. These are like one-day events, but they've got some really cool topics. Grinch Camp, Ice Age Beasts, Blizzard Blast, Winter Wizards are all different topics they've got. So if you're interested, check it out. And then we still have our guided hikes, which are happening in our parks throughout December. One example, we've got the Lost Railroad hike in California woods in December. So on these nice days like this, there's still plenty of ways to enjoy the park. And then lastly, it's award season, not as prestigious as the Oscars or something. But we do have some good news to report there. The Inwood Park Grow Up Great Playground project, which I think you've all seen, beautiful. Which is in partnership with obviously PNC and our friends at the Parks Foundation. They won second prize in the OPRA, Ohio Parks and Recreation Association annual contest for capital improvement project under 1 million. Also, the Park Foundation's Be Well Adaptive Hiking Program, which is in partnership with us and Loop 5 Adventures, won first place in the adaptive programs and events category at the same.
That's great.
So, and then also Johnston Park, that project right around the corner, which you guys approved some time ago, won a merit award in the design non-construction category from the Ohio chapter of the American Society of Landscape Architects. So we want to congratulate everybody involved and thank them for the great work that's happening.
Great.
Perfect.
Great.
So, and all information about all that, as well as the opportunities in our parks, there's still volunteer opportunities all available on the website through our social.
Yes.
And I'll add, Crone Conservatory Christmas program is open. So after walking the trails, everybody listening, please go and enjoy Crone, highlight of the season.
Yes.
Great. Any questions for Rocky?
That's
I have a
great
question.
news.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure, yeah,
Trains and traditions of Cincinnati holidays.
perfect.
So 2 questions, actually, just based on what you just said. In prior years, we've had like an event to open that exhibit at Crone. We're not having that now.
There is an event right now, as I understand it from the team at Crone, it's tentative, but they're looking at December 3rd to have like a tree lighting ceremony.
Yeah.
It doesn't, the show generally opens a few weeks before that occurs. But
Sure.
They, in recent years, they've kind of closed it down and had a more private event where they, will officially light the tree. So that is still in the works. And as soon as we get the details nailed down and confirmed, we'll certainly share that with you.
Great.
Is that same gentleman who did all that work with the sticks? Is he still
It's
operational? And is he still creating?
Applied Imagination.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the company that they work with.
Yeah, it's awesome.
There's a new
building.
building. It's
It's just awesome.
yeah, Finley Mark.
That's it.
Oh, really?
Oh, it's
Okay, I can't
beautiful.
wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we were working with them on doing some cross promotion for Finley marketing. But
Great.
yeah, we're glad to have that addition. Yeah, it looks beautiful.
The second one was the videos on Facebook are really good. I enjoy those. I have learned so much from your presentations. A suggestion as an additional topic is exactly what you just started with. All of the things that are happening. If I don't go to the website, then I might miss those. But if you could do like at the beginning of the month, here are all the things that you can look forward to in the park this month. And just do that as one of those videos, I think would be very informative, would help me because I would know,
Yes.
because I do watch those.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we'll certainly look to do that. Unfortunately, about 6 weeks ago, we lost our part-time videographer, who's very talented. I know each of you may probably have worked with him or seen him at our events. He's awesome. We're really happy and proud he's found a full-time gig. So we're in the process of figuring out how to fill that gap. But yeah, we've had tremendous success with our digital engagement over the last few years. We're almost at 50,000 Facebook followers, over 40,000 on Instagram. And what's happening is because of the engagement and the fun stuff, we're able to kind of hook them in and explain things like when we're offering programs, we want them to know. Very active, very engaged audience. I'm really proud of the work that we've done there. And it's at the same time allowing us to decrease what we had to spend on paid advertising because we're able to just sell things out so quickly. Many of the hikes we've already had, for example, are closed because they've sold out so quickly. So we're going to continue to do that, and that's great feedback.
Did you do one on Pow Pow?
Yes, yeah,
I'd never heard of that before.
yes.
Yes, I've never heard of
There's
it.
one in my yard when we first moved there. I was cutting the grass.
Very good old little thing.
But,
It's our native tropical fruit.
Yeah.
yeah,
I
so it's
never
my
heard of that.
something, and I'm like, what in the world is this? Because we had just moved in, I was cutting the grass and it was fall. And it was a pop.
Sounds like, great. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
We have come to the end of our business section. We will be going into executive session now. And for those online on Zoom, we do not anticipate any further business after we come out of executive session. So you're more than welcome to, we will connect back to Zoom, but I would anticipate it would be to only adjourn our public meeting. So with that, I would like to move that we enter into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, section 121.22 parentheses G, to consider the employment, compensation, and discipline of a public employee. Having made that motion, is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and second. Mary, this requires a roll call vote.
President Hvac?
Yes.
Vice President Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Castellini?
Yes.
Commissioner Linder?
Yes.
Commissioner North?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The way that